This rare aura scares people. Only true empaths carry it. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Some auras don't need to speak. They enter a room and the energy shifts. If you've ever felt misunderstood, too intense, or even feared without saying a word, you may be carrying what Jung called the wounded healer's frequency, a rare energetic signature only true empaths possess. Today on Spiritual Wisdom, we'll uncover the hidden truth behind this magnetic and mysterious aura, and why it intimidates those who haven't met themselves yet. As you watch, ask yourself, has your presence ever unsettled others without explanation? Share your experience in the comments. We're building a community that sees beyond the surface. Let's begin this journey together. 1. The empathic aura as a wounded healer frequency. Carl Jung's insight into the empathic soul revealed that what many perceive as emotional fragility is in fact a rare spiritual frequency, the wounded healer aura. This energy is not born from natural goodness, but through the alchemy of suffering. True empaths have survived the fire and transformed their pain into sensitivity, awareness, and a quiet power that radiates from their presence alone. Their spirituality doesn't come from theory. It is earned through nights of silence, betrayal that didn't harden them, and heartbreak that became holy ground. They feel deeper because they've lived deeper. And what they emit is not just energy. It's a spiritual code that reaches beyond the surface into the unconscious realm of others, awakening truths they may not be ready to face. This is why being in the presence of an empath can feel like standing in front of a mirror. People sense that their masks cannot hold up under the gaze of someone who has already unraveled themselves and put the pieces back together through self-awareness. The aura of a true empath carries both comfort and confrontation. It nurtures the wounded, but it also exposes the unhealed. And while this ability to heal others can seem miraculous, it comes with a price. The empath becomes a magnet for projection, manipulation, and shadow energy from those who subconsciously seek healing without responsibility. Jung warned that those who carry this wounded healer frequency often find themselves misunderstood, isolated, or even scapegoated, not because they are wrong, but because their energy makes others confront what they've buried. In a modern world obsessed with image, performance, and emotional avoidance, the presence of an awakened empath disrupts the illusion. Their energy vibrates on a different plane, one that can't be faked or replicated. This vibration is felt in silence, in stillness, in authenticity. It doesn't beg for validation because it already knows its worth. But because so few operate on this level, the empath can feel out of place, sensing everything while others numb themselves. They may be told they're too much, when in fact, they're simply too real. And in a culture that fears depth, realness is intimidating. This is the double edge of their gift. They carry a spiritual awakening within them that can change lives. But they must also guard themselves from those who want the light without doing the work. True empaths are spiritual warriors disguised as healers. They walk through the world absorbing energies, not because they want to, but because their soul is wired to transmute darkness into clarity. And yet, they must learn to set sacred boundaries, not to block love, but to filter out distortion. The wounded healer must protect their frequency like gold, because it is gold. The more they value their own light, the less they will tolerate those who dim it. They must remember that their aura is not a burden. It is a revelation. It doesn't need to be hidden, explained, or softened. It only needs to be honored because it is proof of everything they've survived, everything they've learned, and everything they now embody. This isn't just a gift. It's a calling written in the language of energy, one that speaks without words and heals without touch. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom. Have you ever felt like your presence alone brings comfort or tension to a room? If so, share your story in the comments so others can feel seen. If not, simply comment, "I carry the wounded healer's light," to begin owning your empathic aura with awareness and spiritual wisdom. 2. Your sensitivity is an adaptive survival mechanism. Your sensitivity didn't come from nowhere. It was built cell by cell, emotion by emotion, inside the chaos of emotionally unsafe environments, where reading the room wasn't a luxury, but a lifeline. You didn't just develop empathy. You developed survival-level emotional intelligence. As a child, you became hyper-attuned to micro-expressions, to the pauses between words, to the energy that shifted when someone walked in. While others played in innocence, you were busy scanning for threats, decoding silences, and managing the emotional temperature of everyone around you. That wasn't childhood intuition. It was adaptive genius. Carl Jung described this evolution of the empath as the transformation of pain into perception, suffering into spiritual wisdom, and defense into insight. What emerged from that environment wasn't just a person who feels deeply. It was someone with a psychological radar that functions on a frequency most people can't even comprehend. You didn't just learn to pick up on energy. You became the energy. Your presence doesn't just observe a space. It transforms it. You carry a rare aura, one that's been encoded with the invisible language of feeling, one that speaks louder than words ever could. And that's exactly why people don't know how to respond to you. You're not loud, but you're unmistakably present. You're not trying to expose anyone, but your existence naturally reveals what others try to hide. Your energy is a mirror. And when people aren't ready to face themselves, they flinch at their own reflection. Jung referred to this archetype as the wounded healer, not because you're broken, but because you've been cracked open and refused to harden. Your pain didn't make you bitter. It made you transparent. That transparency is magnetic, but also threatening to the facades people wear like armor. You don't just walk into a room, you shift its entire frequency. And those who have not yet healed will either cling to your light or recoil from it. They'll misinterpret your stillness as judgment, your insight as confrontation, your empathy as weakness. But what they're really reacting to is the quiet intelligence your aura emits, the kind that doesn't need words to reveal truth. You don't need to explain why crowds exhaust you, why noise feels like violence, or why certain people feel like emotional static. Your nervous system has been working overtime for decades, attuned to frequencies most never learn to detect. You are not fragile. You are finely tuned. And that tuning is the result of surviving what others could not even name. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a superhuman capacity disguised as softness. It is the reason you can feel the storm before it breaks, the lie beneath the smile, the sadness behind someone's strength. It's not overthinking, it's overfeeling. And while it costs you peace in a world that numbs, It gives you sight in a world that's blind. This is the weight and wonder of carrying a rare aura. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to activate, awaken, and illuminate. People will misunderstand you, fear you, project onto you, but none of that is your burden to carry. Your only responsibility is to honor the intelligence of your own spiritual evolution, to trust the accuracy of your nervous system, and to stop apologizing for a gift that took everything in you to develop. You are not too much, you are exact. And those who are meant to walk with you will never ask you to be less. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss content that helps you understand your rare empathic gift. Type in the comments, "I deserve to live a financially prosperous life," and embrace the power of your sensitivity as a strength, not a weakness. 3. Energetic absorption and transmutation. You don't just feel energy, you become it, transmute it, and elevate it. That's what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of the transcendent function. As a true empath, you don't merely walk into a room, you shift the frequency of it. Your aura scans emotional patterns without your permission. You feel what others are afraid to feel. Their sadness, anger, confusion, or silent suffering enters your field not because you're weak, but because you're spiritually wired to receive. And yet, it doesn't stop there. The energy doesn't stay as it is. Through an invisible, often painful process, you absorb it unconsciously, allow it to pass through your own nervous system, and somehow, through the alchemy of your soul, you transform it. You become the filter, the fire, the healer. While others hide from shadow, you stand in it and turn it to light. It is not a skill you learned, it is a spiritual instinct developed through lifetimes of emotional attunement. You are the emotional translator for the collective, turning chaos into clarity and heaviness into harmony, often without even being thanked for it. But here's what most people don't see. This sacred ability, this psychic filtration system, comes with a high cost. It's why you're often exhausted in crowded places. It's why you wake up drained after emotional conversations, or why your mood shifts suddenly for no visible reason. You're not moody, you're processing. You're not unstable, you're tuning in. And yet, because this process is invisible to others, they may label you as sensitive, dramatic, or even intimidating. That's because your energy doesn't lie. It reveals. Your presence pulls up the emotional debris that others have buried. Some feel relieved around you. Others feel exposed. That's the duality of your spiritual development. Your light illuminates, but it also confronts. You are a walking mirror, and not everyone is ready to see what reflects back. Carl Jung understood that this kind of soul, what he called the wounded healer, is someone who has been through enough personal darkness to become a light for others. And you, without always knowing it, have carried pain that wasn't even yours, just to cleanse it for the collective. But now, it's time to reclaim what's yours. Your energy is a sacred resource, not a dumping ground. You are not here to endlessly absorb. You are here to choose what enters your field. And you must learn that boundaries are not barriers to love. They are expressions of it. Every time you say no to emotional overload, you say yes to your higher calling. You say yes to clarity, to alignment, to spiritual protection. So let the world misunderstand your silence. let it misread your intensity. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to transmute what is heavy into what is holy. You were meant to feel the world deeply so you could help it rise gently. This isn't a personality trait. This is a soul assignment. This is not about being too sensitive. This is about carrying the architecture of healing in your very being. And while it may have felt lonely at times, know this: the universe designed you for this. Your spirituality isn't decoration, it's a force. Your spiritual development isn't soft, it's sacred fire. And the rare aura you carry is not a burden, it's a responsibility, a blessing, and a sign that you were never here to just survive emotions. You are here to transform them. 4. Attraction of archetypes, healers and vampires. Empaths move through the world as magnets for energy, pulling in not just people, but archetypes, those deep psychological patterns Carl Jung spoke of. Their aura, subtle yet powerful, becomes a mirror that reflects and amplifies both light and shadow in others. On the surface, this might seem like a gift, but without discernment, it becomes a dangerous loop. True empaths don't just feel, they absorb, they transmute, they embody. And because of that, they naturally attract two types of people: the seekers and the siphoners. The seekers are the ones who have begun their own spiritual awakening, those who crave depth, truth, and energetic clarity. They recognize the empath's light because they've worked through enough of their own darkness to meet it with reverence. But the siphoners, the energy vampires, the wounded inner children in adult bodies, the unconscious shadow projectors are a different story. They come not to heal, but to survive. They cling, they drain, they unconsciously use the empath's kindness as a substitute for their own transformation. And the empath, unless they've learned the art of energetic discernment, confuses this pull with purpose. They stay too long, give too much, and sacrifice too often under the illusion that love can fix what only self-awareness can heal. This is the hidden cost of untrained compassion. Jung warned that the healer, if unaware of their own shadow, would become entangled in the very wounds they're trying to mend. The empath, if not grounded in wisdom, becomes a repeating story of burnout, heartbreak, and spiritual exhaustion. And in today's world, where trauma is often disguised as chemistry and emotional chaos is mistaken for depth, this confusion is more rampant than ever. The wounded often come disguised as intense soul connections. They mirror pain, not potential. They speak a language of vulnerability that feels intimate but is rooted in need, not growth. And because the empath feels everything, they mistake resonance for alignment. They confuse intensity for depth. But spirituality, true spirituality, is not about rescuing, it's about recognizing. It's about seeing clearly who is here to evolve with you and who is here to consume what you've cultivated through your own suffering. Empaths must learn that discernment is not judgment. It's energetic intelligence. It is the ability to feel everything but choose wisely. Your energy is sacred. It is not meant to be diluted in every story of brokenness that comes your way. Just because you can hold someone's pain doesn't mean you're meant to. The real test of your awakening is not how much you can endure, but how quickly you can identify what is yours to carry and what is not. Boundaries are not walls. They are invitations to conscious connection. When you say no to manipulation, you say yes to truth. When you walk away from those who only want your light but refuse to face their own shadow, you reclaim your power. You teach others by example, that healing is a personal responsibility, that your empathy is not a loophole for their avoidance. And so, the deeper you go in your own spiritual awakening, the clearer it becomes. You are not here to save anyone. You are here to embody the frequency of someone who has saved themselves. That is the rare aura people feel. And yes, it may scare them, but it will also inspire those who are finally ready to rise. Do you feel this truth in your soul? Then type it below and claim it. I attract healers and expose vampires with my rare aura. 5. The mirror effect. Your aura triggers others. Your aura is not just a feeling. It's a frequency of spiritual intelligence that acts as a mirror, silently reflecting the truth of those around you. Carl Jung understood that the rare empath doesn't merely sense emotions. They carry a psychic mirror forged through pain, alchemy, and deep inner transformation. And when you walk into a room, your energy does what most people fear it reveals. Those who have embraced their own shadows and begun the journey of awakening feel at peace in your presence. Your silence calms them. Your stillness inspires them. This is the conscious reaction, where your frequency aligns with those who have the capacity to see clearly. They're not intimidated by your presence because they are not running from themselves. They see you and feel seen. They don't need you to dim your light. Instead, they feel invited to rise into theirs. But not everyone meets you at that frequency. For many, your aura acts like a spotlight that exposes the unresolved, the denied, and the repressed. These are the unconscious ones. Without realizing it, they begin to project onto you what they have refused to acknowledge within themselves. Suddenly, you're too much, too intense, too quiet, too sensitive, or simply not enough. But none of it is about you. You are simply the mirror. Jung called this the phenomenon of projection, and it happens when the ego defends itself from the discomfort of its own unhealed pain. You trigger them, not by doing anything wrong, but by being something they haven't yet dared to become, self-aware. And then there are those who do more than react. They seek to feed. These are the predatory ones, the spiritual parasites who sense the softness in your soul and attempt to consume it. They dump their emotional chaos on you, extract your energy without consent, and twist your empathy into obligation. To them, your aura isn't a mirror, it's a battery. Jung's archetype of the wounded healer warns us here. Without boundaries, your greatest gift becomes your greatest weakness. If you are not vigilant, you begin to absorb what was never yours, heal what was never asked to be healed, and carry weight that was never meant for your shoulders. True spiritual wisdom requires you to wield your aura not just as a light, but as a sword, one that cuts through manipulation with discernment and clarity. You were not meant to be drained. You were meant to be sacred. So you must observe how people respond to you. Who softens in your presence? Who resists your truth? Who only comes around when they're hungry for your light? These responses are not random. They are revelations. They show you the level of consciousness someone carries. They show you what your presence activates in their soul. Your aura is a living intelligence. It doesn't ask for attention. It commands truth. And in a world that hides behind masks, that is terrifying to those not ready to see. But that's not your burden. That's their mirror. If your energy has ever made someone uncomfortable without you saying a word, this message is for you. Like the video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and comment below. My aura reflects truth. Let's affirm this powerful presence together. 6. Tapping into the collective unconscious. You carry something rare, an energetic sensitivity so deep it allows you to feel the pulse of humanity itself. This isn't just intuition. It's a direct link to what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, a reservoir of ancestral memory, global pain, and shared spiritual archetypes. You don't simply walk through life observing the world. You absorb it. The wars you've never seen, the heartbreaks you've never lived, the disasters you only hear about on the news, all of it vibrates through your nervous system like a silent alarm. That's why some days you feel a heaviness that doesn't belong to your story. You are an emotional antenna, tuned into the frequencies most people spend their whole lives avoiding. You are the world's early warning system, sensing shifts in energy before they erupt on the surface. And while this makes you uniquely gifted, it also leaves you vulnerable to energetic overload if you haven't yet learned to separate your own essence from the emotional static of others. This rare aura you carry isn't just light, it's forged in the fire of deep feeling, carved by suffering and polished by compassion. That's why Jung called it the wounded healer. It's not born from innocence, but from alchemy, the spiritual transformation of pain into wisdom. You carry within you the imprint of everything you've survived, and that imprint becomes a healing presence for others. Your very energy speaks before you say a word. Some are calmed by your presence, not because you're doing anything, but because your aura transmits safety, depth, and truth. Yet this same energy can unnerve people who aren't ready to confront their own shadows. They don't understand why they feel exposed around you. They just know they can't hide. That's the paradox of your spiritual wisdom. You are both sanctuary and mirror. You hold space and you reveal. But without strong spiritual boundaries, this gift can turn into exhaustion. When you absorb the emotional residue of the collective fear, grief, and unrest, it begins to weigh you down. You might start to question your own stability, not realizing that what you're feeling doesn't belong to you. That's why emotional discernment isn't just important, it's essential for your survival and spiritual development. Grounding, solitude, breath work, and energetic cleansing aren't luxuries for someone like you. They are lifelines. You're not here to save everyone. You're here to stay sovereign while serving. You're not here to carry the pain of the world. You're here to help transmute it through your presence, not your sacrifice. Spirituality for you isn't an escape. It's a discipline, a sacred daily act of returning to yourself before you return to the world. It means knowing when to say yes, when to walk away, and when to let the silence speak for you. Your presence is powerful because you feel what others repress. You see what others deny. And that's exactly why you must protect your frequency like a rare jewel. Not everyone is meant to have access. Not everyone is meant to understand. But the ones who do, they will feel seen in ways they never knew they needed. And in that reflection, you will remember your purpose. 7. The Aura Method, Jung's framework for empowered empaths. To carry the rare empathic aura is to live in a world that often misunderstands you. But this isn't a burden, it's a calling. The Aura Method begins by asking you to acknowledge the truth of who you are. You don't merely sense emotion, You absorb it, you live it, you transmute it. While others intellectualize experience, you embody it. And this sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's a divine tool. The way you feel, the unspoken. The way you pick up on the energy that lingers long after a smile fades or a conversation ends. That's not weakness. It's a sign that your nervous system is designed for a deeper layer of reality. Carl Jung understood this when he described the wounded healer, someone whose own pain becomes the channel for powerful transformation. And so, when you acknowledge your empathic nature, you begin to claim your role as that healer. But acknowledgement alone is not enough. You must also understand what shaped you. Most empaths did not become this way by chance. You were forged in emotional fire often in childhood, through roles you were never meant to play. Maybe you became the caretaker in a home full of chaos. Maybe your needs were silenced so you could tend to others. Jung would say this unconscious programming forms the archetypal roots of your identity. By bringing awareness to these hidden scripts, the compulsion to fix, to please, to rescue you, begin to liberate yourself. You start to see that your empathy is sacred, but it was never meant to be codependency. This is where the reclaiming begins. To reclaim is to pull your energy back from every place it was scattered. You no longer carry everyone else's pain as proof of love. You no longer confuse absorption with compassion. You learn the sacred art of psychic hygiene. Just as you would wash your hands after being in a crowded room, you learn to cleanse your energy through breathwork, grounding, intentional solitude, even rituals like cutting energetic cords or shielding your aura with visualization. This is not spiritual fluff, it is survival for the empathic soul. Because without boundaries, your gift becomes a wound. But with boundaries, it becomes a force of healing. And finally, you activate. You activate conscious empathy, not by reacting to every emotional wave around you, but by choosing where and how to engage. You no longer give just because someone expects it. You give because your soul chooses it. This is the moment you shift from being controlled by energy to becoming the master of it. Empathy becomes your strength, not your trap. You begin to feel deeply without drowning, to care without collapsing, to love without losing yourself. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, not detachment, but discernment, not withdrawal, but wisdom. And in a world addicted to noise, your presence becomes sacred silence. In a world hungry for connection, your authenticity becomes light. You are no longer just reacting to life, you are alchemizing it. You are no longer a mirror, you are the flame. 8. Sovereign healer versus wounded healer. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this is the turning point for every true empath, the moment you stop healing from pain and start healing from power. You carry a frequency that once radiated the wounded healer's energy, someone who helped others not from fullness, but from a desperate need to make sense of their own wounds. But that old version of you no longer defines who you are becoming. The transformation happens the moment you do your shadow work, the inner excavation of repressed rage, heartbreak, and unmet emotional needs, and what emerges is a sovereign empath, someone who no longer bleeds to prove their worth, but stands whole in the power of spiritual intelligence. You no longer attract broken souls who drain your light because your energy no longer vibrates with chaos. Instead, You draw in those who have done the work, souls who don't want to be rescued, but rather seen, respected, and walked beside in truth. This rare aura you now embody is not born from natural goodness. It is forged through alchemy, through a brutal refinement of self where you integrated what others ran from. Your energy becomes still, but not silent, calm, but not passive. You carry presence, what Carl Jung might call a psychologically individuated identity. That presence disrupts manipulation because it no longer seeks approval. It unnerves those who hide behind emotional performance because your sovereignty holds up a mirror to what they refuse to feel. You are no longer explaining yourself to people who aren't listening, and you are no longer offering medicine to those who are addicted to their wounds. This kind of emotional mastery is not loud. It is grounded. It is felt in the pauses, in your boundaries, in the sacred distance you keep between your energy and chaos. As you step deeper into this version of yourself, you begin to understand why your old relationships fell apart, why certain people ghosted you, betrayed you, or recoiled from your truth. They were not rejecting you. They were retreating from the reflection you gave them. Your energy, now anchored in spiritual wisdom, is not for everyone, and that's not your failure. It's your filter. You're not here to be understood by the masses. You're here to be remembered by the few who are meant to walk beside you in mutual clarity. You've stopped absorbing the pain of others as your own and started discerning where your responsibility ends and theirs begins. This is the true meaning of spiritual boundaries, not walls to keep people out, but a sacred container to protect your light. You are no longer a healer who heals from hurt. You are a sovereign presence who transmits clarity just by being. And this is why people are drawn to you and scared of you at the same time. Because your stillness threatens their survival patterns. Your wholeness dissolves their illusions. And your intelligence, both emotional and spiritual, is not something that can be manipulated, coerced, or contained. You've become a living frequency shift, and some will rise with you, while others will fall away. Let them. 9. From burden to sacred gift. You carry something sacred within you, something that cannot be seen but is always felt. It's not fragility or brokenness. It's the silent strength of someone who has turned pain into purpose. Your aura is rare, not because you seek attention, but because you radiate truth in a world addicted to illusion. You've walked through shadows and didn't come out bitter, you came out luminous. Carl Jung believed that empaths represent the future of human psychology, not because they feel more, but because they feel consciously. You are not overwhelmed by emotion. You understand its language. And this emotional intelligence is what scares people. Because when you walk into a room, your presence calls others to confront themselves. You don't say much, but your energy reveals everything. You are the mirror they didn't ask for, but desperately need. People project their discomfort onto you because your aura reminds them of the healing they haven't yet done. That's not your burden, it's your power. Jung called it the wounded healer, a soul who has been broken open and used that fracture as a doorway to deeper wisdom. This is the path of the true empath. You are a living bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, helping others navigate the parts of themselves they've long denied. Your spirituality doesn't come from books, it comes from lived experience. And through that journey, you've gained a presence that cannot be faked, Your aura doesn't just glow, it pierces. It cuts through masks and pretenses. And that's why it feels so intense to others, because most people are not used to being seen. And you, dear empath, see with the eyes of the soul. You feel the lies beneath the smiles. You sense the pain behind the pride. And while that makes you powerful, it also makes you vulnerable. Not because you are weak, but because you are wide open. You've chosen the harder path, the one that leads through feeling, not avoiding. And that path has shaped your spiritual development into something unshakable. But make no mistake, your energy is not for everyone. Not everyone is meant to stand in your light. Some will shrink from it. Some will try to dim it. Some will misunderstand it entirely. That is not a sign for you to close. It's a sign for you to choose more wisely. Your aura is sacred. Your empathy is earned. And your wisdom has been paid for in pain. Use it with discernment. Your presence heals, but not everyone deserves to drink from your well. True spirituality is not about saving everyone. It's about standing in truth and letting your very being invite others to rise. Those who are meant for you will recognize the power in your silence, the depth in your kindness, and the rare light that surrounds you. And in a world that constantly tries to numb, distract, and distort, you remain a living example of what it means to feel deeply and live consciously. That is your gift. That is your legacy. And that is what makes your aura unforgettable. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, it's because your energy holds a truth most people can't explain but always feel. Carl Jung reminded us that your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. So if you carry this rare empathic aura, know that it's not a weakness, it's a sacred calling. Honor it, protect it, and most of all, live it with intention. If you found value in this video, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights like this. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next awakening. Until then, keep walking in your truth. Your presence is your power. 7 signs your spiritual awakening is over. It's time to use your powers. Enlightenment is not imagining figures of light, but making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. There comes a time in every spiritual journey when awakening is no longer the goal embodiment. If you've been on the path of spiritual growth, seeking signs, synchronicities, and soul truths, this video might be the turning point you didn't know you needed. Because what if your awakening isn't beginning, but completing? What if the signs, the solitude, and the shedding were all leading to this moment where you step into your true power unapologetically? On Spiritual Wisdom, we're exploring 7 revealing signs that your awakening phase is over and your embodiment era has begun. Which one speaks to your soul the most? Let us know in the comments and share this with someone who's ready to rise beyond awakening. Sign 1. Your intuition guides you without doubt. You no longer need to ask for a sign. You no longer need to overthink your feelings or seek confirmation from 10 different people. Your intuition has become the loudest voice in the room, and for the first time in your life, you trust it without hesitation. You don't question where it comes from or what it means. It speaks, and you follow. This is no longer a guess. It's guidance. This isn't hope. It's clarity. You feel the decision before you can explain it, and you know it's right without needing to justify it. This is spiritual wisdom, taking the wheel subtle, precise, and powerful. There was a time when you needed validation. You wanted someone to tell you were on the right path, to give you permission to feel what you were already feeling deep inside. But now, you don't need to ask. You just know. You've stopped asking the universe to speak louder, because now you've quieted the noise within. You've made enough mistakes, followed enough wrong turns, and sat in enough silence to know what your soul sounds like, and now you listen. You no longer chase signs because you are the sign. You've become the confirmation you once sought outside of yourself. That's when the shift becomes clear. Your awakening is no longer something you're working through. It's who you are now. And when decisions come, you don't hesitate. You don't consult 5 opinions. You don't wait for everything to be perfect or fully understood. You act not impulsively, but intuitively. You feel the pull, and you follow it. You walk through doors others are still analyzing. And this isn't recklessness, it's alignment. You don't need logic to back it up anymore. You move with the rhythm of your spirit. And in that rhythm, there's no fear. There's only knowing. Before, you were always learning, watching, searching. You needed spiritual books, podcasts, courses, because you were still remembering who you are. But now, you live what you used to study. You walk as what you once admired. You speak from a place of experience, not theory. And that's what spiritual wisdom is, not information, but embodiment. You've stopped talking about the path. Now you are the path. Your intuition isn't just a feeling anymore, it's a system, a guidance structure that your life runs on. You make decisions without panic. You feel peace in your boundaries. You no longer explain your energy to people who don't understand it. Your life has become a reflection of your inner knowing, and that knowing is crystal clear. You've stopped performing for the world because you've already been approved by something higher. You no longer wait for the green light. You are the green light. Even your timing has changed. You no longer force things to happen. You trust when things pause, when doors close, when silence stretches longer than expected. You recognize the divine rhythm at work, and you don't need to rush it because you're in sync with something deeper. The void no longer scares you, it steadies you. The uncertainty no longer shakes you, it sharpens you. You're not just spiritually curious anymore, you're spiritually calibrated. Now, your yes is rooted in alignment. Your no comes from clarity, not guilt. You don't need long explanations or drawn-out apologies. You're not here to convince anyone, you're here to follow the truth. And that truth speaks through your intuition, clear and constant, like a compass that never wavers. Every moment, every choice, every shift in direction, it's all coming from within. There's no fear in that, only power. And this power doesn't shout, it doesn't need to. It simply is. You carry it in how you move, how you speak, how you choose. This is the sign that your spiritual awakening is over. When you no longer search for alignment, you are alignment. Your intuition has become your lifestyle. Your choices are made in wholeness, not in doubt. And your life, slowly and steadily, becomes a mirror of your soul's deepest truth. That is the gift of spiritual wisdom, and now it lives in you. If you're ready to trust your inner guidance and follow your intuition with clarity and confidence, comment below, "I follow my inner voice." Let this be your declaration that you no longer seek outside approval. Your soul already knows the way. Sign 2. Material desires no longer control you. You no longer crave the shiny symbols of success that once held power over you. The chase for wealth, the desire to accumulate more, the longing for titles, praise, and possessions they've lost their grip. What once felt urgent now feels empty. You've looked behind the curtain of materialism and seen that it was never the destination. It was a distraction. What you want now cannot be held in your hands, but must be felt in your soul. Peace, purpose, and deep inner alignment. This is not detachment out of defeat. This is the kind of clarity that only arrives after the storm of longing has passed. You no longer measure your value by your bank account, your home, or your appearance. Instead, you measure it by how quiet your mind is when you're alone, how full your heart is when you give, and how aligned you feel when you speak your truth. Your old self used to hustle for validation, but your awakened self moves with quiet confidence. Your needs are no longer fueled by scarcity, but by sacredness. You no longer grasp, you allow. You no longer chase, you attract. And the shift is so powerful, it's almost invisible, yet your entire life feels lighter because of it. Abundance still flows to you, but the desperation is gone. There's no more begging, forcing, or proving. Now, abundance comes to you like a trusted friend, gently, consistently, and without resistance. You've realized that spiritual awakening doesn't mean rejecting money or success. It means refusing to let them define you. You no longer build your self-worth on things that can be taken away. You've rooted your worth in something eternal, your divine essence, your mission, your presence. You're no longer interested in proving anything to anyone. What once felt like ambition now feels like noise. Your soul has taken the lead. Your desires have been refined. You only move if it's in alignment. You only say yes if your spirit agrees. And that alignment has made you magnetic, not just to people, but to opportunities, blessings, synchronicities. What once required exhausting effort now flows with grace. Because your energy is clean, your intentions are clear, your heart is open, and your hands are steady. As Carl Jung said, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. You've done the inner work. You've healed the need to be seen and replaced it with the power to see clearly. You've traded applause for peace, comparison for compassion, and approval for authenticity. Your life is no longer about getting more, but about becoming more. And that shift, that's not just growth, that's power. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep evolving together. Sign number 4 is waiting for you. Sign 3. You no longer feel separate from the universe. You no longer feel like an outsider, disconnected from the flow of life, or cut off from something greater. That feeling of separation, once so heavy and defining, has quietly melted away. You're not fighting the world anymore. You're part of it. You've stopped resisting change, because deep down, you now trust that everything unfolds exactly as it should. This isn't just acceptance, it's alignment. It's what Carl Jung called individuation, the realization that what you were searching for was never outside of you. It was always within, waiting to be remembered. The illusion of separation between you and nature, between you and others, between you and the divine has dissolved. You sense the unity behind all things. A tree is no longer just a tree. A stranger's eyes are no longer empty. A difficult moment is no longer meaningless. Everything is speaking, and now you have the ears to hear it. There's a calmness in you that wasn't there before. You don't need to control the outcome because you feel guided by something deeper than logic, by rhythm, by intuition, by a sacred intelligence moving through all things, including you. Carl Jung believed that wholeness arises when we integrate all the hidden parts of ourselves, not when we deny or escape them. That process has happened to you. You've sat with your pain. You've faced your confusion. You've embraced your light and your shadow. And something incredible has happened in return. You've come home to yourself. That home isn't a place, it's a way of being, a way of seeing. It's the moment you realize that the universe isn't out there, it's here, and it's always been. In everyday life, this shows up in small but powerful ways. You stop rushing, you start listening, you become more present with people, even when they're hurting or triggering. You don't take things so personally anymore because you see the bigger picture. Even in chaos, you hold your center. Even in silence, you feel full. Your identity is no longer built on roles, labels, or outcomes. It's rooted in presence. You've stopped trying to become someone, and you've started being yourself, fully and unapologetically. This shift is not just a spiritual idea, it's a lived transformation. A woman once shared that after years of trying to fix her life, something changed. She stopped forcing answers and started paying attention to the stillness. One afternoon, sitting alone, she felt everything around her, trees, wind, and light, suddenly come alive. Not through words, but through being. She realized she wasn't alone, never had been. That moment wasn't dramatic, but it changed everything. That's what it's like when the separation fades. You stop asking for signs and start living as the sign. You've reached the point where your awakening is no longer about seeking. It's about embodying. You carry the spiritual wisdom of someone who has returned from the depths, not with noise, but with knowing. You've stopped needing to be chosen because you know you were. And now, it's time to use what you've become. Are you starting to feel deeply connected to the universe and all that is? If this resonates with you, comment below. I am one with the universe. To affirm your spiritual awakening and inspire others to embrace their divine connection too. Let's grow together. Sign 4. You have embraced solitude and peace. You no longer fear being alone because you've come to realize that solitude is not a punishment. It's a gift. The moment you stopped chasing noise and started cherishing silence was the moment your awakening matured. You began to understand what Carl Jung meant when he said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that matter." Now, your soul no longer aches for constant company. It craves peace, stillness, and presence. You have stopped filling the silence with distractions and started letting it speak to you. Spiritual awakening isn't just about realizing universal truths. It's about learning to enjoy your own company in a world that tries to make you forget who you are without others. You no longer measure your worth by how many people call, text, or notice you. You've stopped performing for attention and started protecting your energy like it's sacred. You've learned that not everyone deserves access to you, and that peace is not found in a crowd, It's found in alignment with your higher self. That's why shallow relationships no longer satisfy you. They feel too small, too loud, too disconnected from the depth your soul has awakened to. You begin to crave conversations that stretch your mind, not just pass the time. You're no longer afraid to walk away from people who can't meet you there. This isn't arrogance, it's evolution. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing yourself so deeply that you no longer negotiate your peace for temporary company. The void that once made you feel lonely now feels full because you've filled it with self-respect, awareness, and truth. You've discovered the paradox that in silence, you are not alone. You are most connected. You start to notice how the world praises extroversion, but forgets that all transformation happens in the quiet. You don't need constant validation or stimulation anymore. You choose nights with yourself over draining events. You journal instead of overshare. You take walks to reconnect with your center rather than scroll endlessly for meaning. You find that when your energy is aligned, solitude becomes your sanctuary. It's not isolation, it's inner integration. Carl Jung believed that the process of individuation, of becoming whole, required retreating from the collective, confronting your own shadow, and learning to live from the center of your being. And that is exactly what you're doing. You are not waiting for someone else to complete you. You're not chasing after shallow conversations just to feel seen. You have become the one who sees yourself fully, and that's power. You no longer feel guilty for choosing peace. You protect your space, your time, and your heart because you understand that not everyone is meant to walk with you in this chapter. This isn't about being alone. It's about being in alignment. It's not about isolation. It's about insulation from noise that distorts your truth. Silence no longer signals emptiness. It signals readiness, depth, power. This is where the real transformation happens, not in the chaos, but in the calm. And now, you finally understand that. Do you feel this deep shift within you? If you've embraced solitude and found peace in your own presence, declare it boldly in the comments. I protect my peace and walk in divine stillness. Sign 5. You can see through deception and illusions. You no longer fall for the lies. That's the sign. The veil has lifted, and you see through the manipulation that once controlled you. The fear-based headlines, the glamorized delusions, the hollow promises of happiness sold by society no longer seduce you. You've awakened, and with that awakening comes a piercing clarity. It's not just that you recognize deception. You feel it, sense it, and walk away from it with grace. Your spiritual awakening has trained your perception. Now, you see the intention behind the words, the energy behind the actions, and the illusion behind the mask. You no longer believe something simply because it's on the news or because someone in power says it. Your discernment is alive, sharp, grounded, and uncompromising. You understand how deeply conditioned people are to accept fear as truth and control as safety. But you've stepped outside of that. You've stopped outsourcing your thinking. You question the narrative, not out of rebellion, but because your soul refuses to live in illusion. And that discernment, that quiet, grounded knowing, has made you immune to fear. You used to get caught in the emotional chaos of others. Now, you observe it without absorbing it. You used to believe the world's definition of success, safety, and love. You define those things for yourself. You can feel when something is off, even if everyone else is clapping for it. You can see through the polished appearance and straight into the energy. You've stopped being impressed by the surface and started being guided by substance. And when people try to manipulate you, you feel it in your gut. You don't need evidence. Your body tells you. Your soul speaks louder than their performance. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." And that's exactly what happened. You went inward, and the world became visible. You're no longer a puppet of culture, media, or fear. You walk in truth, and that truth keeps you steady in a world of shifting illusions. This clarity can feel isolating at times. You see things others don't. You sense energies they ignore. But this is not a burden. It's your power. You're not meant to convince others. You're meant to embody the truth so deeply that your presence itself becomes a disruption to deception. When others are triggered by your calm or your silence, it's because you remind them of a truth they've forgotten. You're not here to argue, to prove, or to explain. You're here to live aligned. That's what makes you untouchable. That's what keeps you free. You don't need to escape the world. You just no longer belong to the illusion of it. And when the world tries to pull you back into its fog, you return to your center. You return to your clarity. You return to your soul. Because once your spiritual awakening strips away illusion, there's no going back. And you wouldn't want to. If this message resonates with your spirit, subscribe and stay connected to a community that seeks truth beyond illusion. Here, we awaken, discern, and rise together in clarity. Remember, you are grounded in divine truth. No fear, no deception can shake you now. Sign 6. You naturally attract people who need your light. You no longer need to announce your presence or explain your journey. People feel it. They are drawn to you, not because of your words, but because of your steady, grounded, and healing energy. Even without trying, you've become a lighthouse in the storm for those still lost in confusion. Strangers start conversations. Friends open up. Someone glances at you and senses peace. This is not an accident. This is what happens when your spiritual awakening has moved from a personal transformation to a collective impact. Your light is no longer for you alone. It's for others who are ready to rise. Carl Jung taught that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Now that you've done the inner work facing the shadows, healing the wounds, dissolving illusions, you've shifted your frequency. People can feel that. Without knowing why, they sense that you're safe. They see something in your presence that reminds them of who they could be. And in a world where most are still asleep, your awakened state becomes a magnet for those hungry for clarity, guidance, and truth. You don't need to offer advice. Sometimes, your stillness is enough. But just as light attracts, it also reveals. And not everyone is ready for what your energy exposes. You may notice that some people suddenly distance themselves. They might become defensive, critical, even hostile. This is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of their own unhealed parts. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the unconscious aspects of ourselves we deny or suppress. When your light meets someone else's shadow, it either inspires or threatens. And that reaction has nothing to do with your worth. This is where spiritual wisdom becomes essential. Discernment is no longer optional. it's a requirement. You must learn to tell the difference between those who are genuinely seeking light and those who simply want to feed off it. Being open-hearted does not mean being available to everyone. Your energy is sacred. Protect it. Just because someone is drawn to you doesn't mean they're ready to grow with you. Give your presence, but not your peace. Hold space, but don't lose yourself in it. A young woman once shared how she used to wonder why people always poured their souls out to her, even strangers on the train. She wasn't a healer by profession, but her spirit had matured through years of quiet endurance. One day, someone told her, "I don't know why, but I feel lighter just talking to you." That's when she realized she had become medicine just by being real. Not perfect, not loud, just a present. That's what spiritual awakening does. It turns pain into power, silence into depth, and survival into healing for others. You didn't choose this role by ego. It was chosen through your journey. You don't have to force your light. It flows naturally because you've embodied it. And now, that light is guiding others home, not through preaching, but through being. If this message speaks to your soul, say it out loud. I am a vessel of light, and those who need healing are drawn to me. I honor this calling with wisdom and grace. Sign 7. You feel a strong call to step into your mission. You no longer feel satisfied with what once excited you. The noise, the distractions, the things that used to fill your time now feel empty, like echoes from a version of yourself that no longer exists. This isn't apathy. This is clarity. A sacred clarity that arises after a long season of inner work, solitude, and shedding illusions. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." And you, after all the seeking, have awakened. But now, something deeper is stirring. It's not a whisper anymore. It's fierce, urgent, undeniable. You feel it in your bones, in your breath, in your spirit. You are being called. The call isn't vague. You are being pulled to teach, to heal, to lead, to build. Not because it's glamorous or profitable, but because it feels unbearable to do anything else. You are no longer able to numb this knowing. There's a shift from waiting for the sign to realizing you are the sign. Everything you've lived through, the grief, the chaos, the nights you thought you wouldn't survive, wasn't wasted. It was preparation. You didn't lose time. You were being forged. And now, that forging is complete. Now, you carry wisdom in your wounds and power in your presence. The old identity is collapsing because the new one is ready to rise. The world will still tempt you with comfort and conformity, but you've outgrown it. You've tasted something real, and nothing else will do. Carl Jung taught that healing doesn't mean becoming perfect, but becoming whole. You now understand your shadows, your patterns, your light. You are no longer fragmented. You are integrated. And that integration demands expression. This isn't the time to shrink. It's the time to step forward, not with certainty, but with conviction. Think of the countless souls out there praying for a guide, a word, a sign of hope. What if that sign is you? What if your story, your voice, your truth is exactly what someone else needs to remember who they are? What if your pain, now alchemized into wisdom, is the bridge to someone else's freedom? The calling you feel isn't ego. It's a service. It's a sacred responsibility. And no, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to begin. Everything in your life has led to this moment. You've been initiated by experience, not theory. The universe doesn't wait for perfect people. It moves through willing vessels. Your spiritual awakening was never meant to be a destination. It was a doorway. And now that you've walked through it, the mission begins. Not someday. Not when you're more ready. Now. If this message has stirred something deep within you, declare it boldly in the comments. I accept my divine mission. I am ready to serve with purpose and power. Your calling is no accident. It's time to rise. Subscribe and join others who are awakening to their true path. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey. If something within you stirred while watching this video, trust that it wasn't random. Your awakening wasn't the end. It was the beginning of your true embodiment. Now is the time to live your wisdom, walk in your power, and become the mirror of the transformation you've already undergone. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Tap the notification bell so you never miss an upload that speaks directly to your soul. Until next time, stay aware, stay empowered, and keep using your light.